Your Honor, with all due respect, this woman abandoned 4 children, including a 7-year-old fighting leukemia, with a note that called her daughter the sick kid. She's now suing me for back relationship damages. The judge's gavel hadn't even hit the bench yet when my ex-husband's attorney jumped up, papers scattering across the polished courtroom floor. Your Honor, my client was under extreme duress. Duress? I leaned forward, my voice cutting through the tension like steel. The only people under duress were 4 children watching their mother work 3 jobs while their father was starting a new family 3 states away under a different name. Tell me, Your Honor, what's the legal term for a man who abandons his family, changes his identity to avoid child support, and then returns 18 years later demanding access to the empire his ex-wife built from the poverty he left her in? The judge looked up from the documents, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. Ms. Grayson, according to these financial disclosures, your company's annual revenue is $42 million, Your Honor. Last year alone. My ex-husband's face went white. His attorney grabbed his arm as he started to stand, but it was too late. The courtroom doors opened, and 3 federal agents walked in with a warrant bearing his name, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started. Back to the morning I woke up to an empty bed and a future that looked like nothing but darkness. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Revenge with Alice. If you're new here, welcome to our family. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, for sharing your stories, and for creating this community of survivors and thrivers. Before we start today's story, I want to say a prayer for you, wherever you are in the world right now. Dear God, I pray for every person watching this video. I pray that whatever burden they're carrying becomes lighter today. I pray for strength for those who feel weak, hope for those who feel hopeless, and courage for those facing impossible decisions. I pray that doors of opportunity open where walls once stood, and that every tear sown in darkness produces a harvest of joy in the morning. Bless their families, protect their children, and remind them that they are never, ever alone. Amen. Now, let's talk about Natalie Grayson. That's me. I'm 46 years old, and this is the story of how I went from having $284 in my bank account and 4 hungry children to building a tech empire that changed an entire industry. This is the story of the man who walked away from us when we needed him most, and what happened when he came back thinking he could claim a piece of what I built. Grab your coffee, settle in, and please, if this story touches you, drop a comment below. Your engagement helps this channel reach other people who need to hear that survival is possible, that success is achievable, and that some bridges are meant to stay burned. Let's begin. March 17, 2006. That's a date that's carved into my memory like a scar that never quite faded. I woke up at 5:47 a.m. because my daughter Chloe was crying in the next room. She was 7 years old and in the middle of her 2nd round of chemotherapy for acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The nausea from the treatment always hit her hardest in the early morning hours. I reached across the bed for my husband, Daniel, to ask him to get her medicine while I got dressed. My hand met cold sheets. Not just cool. Cold. I sat up, my heart already beginning that sick, knowing thud that happens when your body understands something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. The bathroom door was open, dark. I walked to the closet and pulled the chain for the light, half empty. His side of the closet, where suits and shoes and the leather jacket I'd saved for 6 months to buy him had hung, was picked over like a carcass. The good stuff was gone. What remained were clothes too worn to bother with, things that marked him as not worth the space in his new life. Mommy? Chloe's voice came again, weaker this time. I grabbed her anti-nausea medication and went to her room, forcing my face into something that wouldn't scare her. She was so pale against the pillow, her hair mostly gone from the chemotherapy, but her eyes were still bright, still trusting. Where's Daddy? She asked as I helped her take her medicine. Daddy had to go to work early, sweetheart, before breakfast. Sometimes grown-ups have to do that. I kissed her forehead and went downstairs, my legs moving on autopilot while my brain screamed that something was very, very wrong. The kitchen light was already on. For a moment, hope flared. Maybe he was down here making coffee. Maybe there was an explanation. Then I saw it. A single piece of notebook paper on the kitchen counter, torn from one of the kids' school supplies, his handwriting scrawled across it in blue pen. Natalie, I can't do this anymore. The hospital bills are crushing us. Chloe's treatment could go on for years, and even then, there's no guarantee. The boys need things I can't provide. You need things I can't provide. I'm drowning, and I can't take everyone down with me. There's $284 in the checking account. I took the savings to get myself set up somewhere. You'll figure something out, you always do. You're stronger than me. You always were. Don't try to find me. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. I changed my phone number. Tell the kids I'm sorry, the sick kid deserves better than watching her father fall apart. They all do, Daniel. I read it 3 times before the words made sense. Even then, they didn't make sense. They couldn't, the sick kid. He'd called our daughter, our Chloe, who drew pictures of rainbows for her nurses and still believed in magic and told me every night that she was going to get better so she could be a veterinarian, the sick kid. My hands started shaking. The paper fluttered to the counter, $284. Our mortgage was $1,847 a month. Chloe's next treatment was scheduled for Wednesday, 3 days away, with a copay of $500. The boys, my 10-year-old twins Marcus and Tyler, needed new shoes because they'd outgrown theirs. The electric bill was overdue, and he'd taken the savings. $12,000 we'd been living on while he was between jobs. Money my mother had given us from selling her house to move into our basement so she could help with Chloe. I walked to the basement door and opened it. Mom? I called down. I'm up, honey. Is Chloe okay? Can you come up here? My mother appeared at the bottom of the stairs in her bathrobe, her gray hair in curlers. She took one look at my face and ran up the steps faster than a 70-year-old woman should be able to move. What happened? I handed her the note. She read it once, then looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Pure rage, that coward, she whispered. That absolute coward, what do I do? My voice broke on the question. Mom, what do I do? She pulled me into her arms. I was taller than her by 4 inches, but in that moment, I felt 6 years old again. You survive, she said into my hair. And then you thrive. And that bastard will regret the day he walked out on the best thing that ever happened to him. The boys came downstairs at 6:30, already dressed for school, arguing about something involving a video game controller. They stopped when they saw me and my mother at the kitchen table. The note between us. Where's Dad? Marcus asked. He was the older twin by 4 minutes and never let Tyler forget it. I'd had 30 minutes to figure out what to say. It wasn't enough. Your father had to go away for work. He's going to be gone for a while. How long? Tyler pushed his glasses up his nose, a nervous habit he'd had since he was 3. I don't know yet, buddy. Is it because of Chloe? Marcus's voice was small. Because she's sick? No. I pulled them both close. Nothing that happens in this family is Chloe's fault. Do you understand me? Nothing. They nodded against my shoulders, but I could feel their confusion, their fear. They knew something was wrong. Kids always know. Chloe appeared in the doorway, dragging her favorite blanket. Is Daddy coming back tonight? 4 faces looked at me, waiting for an answer I didn't have to. I don't know, sweetheart. But I'm here. Grandma's here. We're all here together. It was the best I could do. At 9 a.m., after I'd gotten the boys on the school bus and settled Chloe on the couch with cartoons, I called the hospital billing department. Good morning, this is Natalie Grayson. My daughter Chloe has a treatment scheduled for Wednesday, and I need to discuss payment arrangements. The woman on the other end had clearly had this conversation before. Her voice was kind but practiced. Let me pull up your account, I heard typing. Okay, Mrs. Grayson. I see you have a balance of $12,847 from previous treatments. The copay for Wednesday's session will be $500, but given your current balance, we'll need to discuss a payment plan before we can proceed with further treatment. My throat closed. What does that mean? It means we need you to come in and meet with a financial counselor. We can work out arrangements, but we can't schedule additional treatments until we have a plan in place. My daughter has cancer. The words came out strangled. You can't just stop her treatment. We're not stopping anything, Mrs. Grayson. But we need to establish, I'll be there this afternoon. I hung up and stared at my phone. Then I opened my banking app. $284, like he'd said. He'd been thorough. I called Daniel's number. Disconnected. I called his mother. She didn't answer. I left a voicemail. She never called back. I called his brother. I don't want to get involved in whatever's going on between you two, he said, and hung up. At 2 p.m., I sat across from a hospital financial counselor named Rita, who had sympathetic eyes and a folder full of applications. There are assistance programs, she said. Charity care funds. Payment plans we can structure. You're not the first family to face this situation. My husband left. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because lying was too exhausting, and the truth was all I had left. This morning, he took our savings. I have $284 and 4 kids. Rita didn't blink. Then we're going to make sure Chloe gets the treatment she needs while we figure out the rest. I need you to fill out these forms. There were 17 forms. Applications for assistance programs I'd never heard of. Income verification that showed I made $28,000 a year as an administrative assistant at a medical device company. Proof of Daniel's abandonment for single-parent assistance. This last one, Rita said, sliding a paper across the desk. This is an application for emergency housing assistance. I know you're not homeless, but you might be soon if we don't get you help. I looked down at the form. It asked if I'd been abandoned by a spouse in the last 30 days. YES.IT asked if I had dependent children. Yes. For .IT asked if any dependents had serious medical conditions. Yes. Leukemia. I started crying right there in Rita's office, big ugly sobs that I couldn't control. She came around the desk and hugged me while I fell apart. You're going to make it through this, she said. I've seen a lot of families come through here, and you want to know what I've learned? The ones who survive are the ones who show up. And you're here. You showed up. The next 3 months were a lesson in exactly how much the human body can endure before it breaks. I picked up every extra shift my supervisor would give me. My mother took over completely with the kids, getting the boys to school, taking Chloe to treatments, cooking meals from whatever we could afford. We ate a lot of pasta. A lot of rice and beans. The boys stopped complaining about food after I broke down at dinner one night when Marcus said he wished we could have chicken like we used to. Our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, started leaving bags of groceries on our porch. She never knocked, never made a show of it. Just groceries that appeared every Saturday morning with a note that said, "Had extra. Please enjoyed." I later found out she'd been using her own retirement money to buy those groceries. When Chloe got better, years later, she was the first person we thanked. The church we'd attended sporadically started a meal train. Different families brought dinner 3 times a week. Some of them barely knew us. They just knew a family in their community was drowning and threw us a lifeline, but not everyone was kind. Daniel's mother called exactly once, 6 weeks after he left. You must have done something, she said. My son wouldn't just leave unless you drove him away. Maybe if you'd been more supportive instead of always focusing on that sick child. Hung up on her. She never called again. At the boys' school, I overheard one mother say to another, well, you know her husband left her. Probably couldn't handle being married to someone so overwhelmed all the time. She always looked so tired. The twins stopped getting invited to birthday parties. I didn't know if it was because the other parents pitied us or because they were afraid our bad luck was contagious. Chloe's treatment was working, but slowly. She'd have good days where she'd laugh and play, and then bad days where she couldn't get out of bed. On those bad days, she'd ask for her daddy. When is he coming back? Mommy, I don't know. Baby, does he know I'm getting better? I'm sure he does. Then why doesn't he come see me? I had no answer that wouldn't break her heart more than it was already broken. At work, my supervisor called me into her office. Janet was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd worked at the company for 20 years. Natalie, I need to talk to you about your performance. My stomach dropped. Have I done something wrong? No. That's the problem. You're doing the work of 3 people, and I have no idea how. I've been watching you. You come in early, you stay late, and the quality of your work hasn't slipped even a little bit despite everything you're dealing with. I blinked. Thank you, I'm not complimenting you. I'm concerned about you. When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours? I couldn't remember. That's what I thought. Janet pulled out a file. I'm recommending you for a position in our new operations division. It's a promotion. Better pay, better benefits. The hours are longer, but you're already working those hours for less money. At least this way you'll get compensated for it. The salary she quoted was $42,000. It was more money than I'd ever made in my life. Why? I asked. Why are you doing this? Janet looked at me for a long moment. Because 20 years ago, I was you. Different circumstances, but same situation, abandoned with kids, drowning in bills, no way out. Someone gave me a chance. Now I'm giving you one. Don't make me regret it. I started in the new position 2 weeks later. The learning curve was steep: operations management, supply chain logistics, vendor negotiations. But I was good at it. Really good at it. I understood systems, how to make things run efficiently, how to identify problems before they became crises. All those years of managing a household on nothing had taught me skills I didn't even know I had. Within 6 months, I'd streamlined our department's processes and saved the company $300,000. Within a year, I was managing a team of 5 people. Within 2 years, Janet made me her assistant director. You're wasted here, she told me one afternoon as we reviewed quarterly reports. You should be running your own company. With what capital? I laughed. I'm still living paycheck to paycheck, then find capital. Because Natalie, I'm serious. You have a mind for operations that I haven't seen in 30 years in this industry. Don't waste it working for someone else. Her words stuck with me. Natalie Grayson's story is just beginning. What she doesn't know yet is that while she's building something from nothing, her ex-husband is building something too, a web of lies that will eventually trap him in ways he never imagined. If you've made it this far, drop a survivor in the comments. Let me know you're here. Let me know you understand what it's like to be knocked down and have to choose between staying down or getting up swinging. Chloe's cancer went into remission when she was 9 years old. 2 full years of treatment, of holding her hair as she vomited, of sleeping in hospital chairs, of watching her fight with a courage that humbled me every single day. The day Dr. Morrison told us she was in remission, I didn't cry. I sat there in his office, holding Chloe's hand, and felt absolutely nothing. Not joy, not relief, just emptiness. Mom? Chloe squeezed my fingers. Did you hear? I'm getting better. Then it hit me. Every emotion I'd locked away for 2 years came flooding back at once. I pulled her into my arms and sobbed into her hair, what little had grown back, while she patted my shoulder and told me it was okay. I told you I'd beat it, Mommy. I told you. She had. Over and over, through every treatment, every setback, every moment when I thought we were going to lose her. She'd looked at me with those impossibly brave eyes and said, I'm going to beat this, and she had. That night, after I'd tucked all 4 kids into bed and my mother had gone to sleep in the basement, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook and a pen. The house was finally quiet. No machines beeping, no medical alarms, no midnight trips to the emergency room. Just silenced. I started writing, things I learned managing a crisis. 1. You can't solve a problem you don't understand. 2. Resources are never the issue, it's how you use them. 3. Communication prevents 90% of disasters. 4. The best solutions are usually the simplest ones. 5. People will pay for peace of mind. I stared at that last line for a long time. At work, I'd been managing increasingly complex operations. Last month, we'd had a massive shipment delay that should have cost us millions. Instead, I'd rerouted materials through 3 different suppliers, negotiated rush fees down to reasonable rates, and delivered everything on time. The CEO had personally thanked me. "How did you even think to do that?" he'd asked. "When you've had to feed 4 kids on $200 a month, you get creative with resources," I'd said. He'd laughed. I hadn't been joking. That conversation replayed in my mind as I sat at the kitchen table. Companies paid consultants thousands of dollars to solve operational problems. But most consultants had MBAs and theories. They'd never actually had to make something from nothing. I had. What if I could take everything I'd learned, from managing Chloe's medical crisis, from stretching every dollar, from coordinating care across multiple providers, from making impossible logistics work, and sell it to companies who needed those exact skills? The idea was insane. I had an associate's degree from community college and a resume that showed I'd been an administrative assistant for most of my career. No fancy credentials, no business school pedigree, no venture capital connections. But I had something better. I had survived what should have destroyed me. And I'd figured out how to thrive in the process. I opened my laptop, a refurbished one I'd bought at a pawn shop, and started researching. Operations consulting. Supply chain optimization. Crisis management. Efficiency auditing. The consulting firms charging $500 an hour for this work had teams of people with impressive degrees. But when I read their case studies, I saw problems I'd already solved in real life, just in different contexts. By 3 a.m., I had the skeleton of a business plan. By 6 a.m., when the kids woke up, I had a name: Grayson Solutions. "Mom, why are you still awake?" Marcus shuffled into the kitchen, his hair sticking up in every direction. "Just working on something, honey." "Want pancakes?" "We have pancakes, we do now. I'd gotten my first real bonus last month, $5,000 for the shipment project. Half had gone to paying down medical debt. The other half was still in my account, waiting. I'd planned to use it for new winter coats for the kids. Instead, I was going to use it to start a company. My mother came upstairs as I was flipping pancakes. She took one look at my face, exhausted but lit up with something she hadn't seen in years, and smiled. "You're going to do something crazy, aren't you?" "Probably." "Good. You've been playing it safe for too long." "Mom, I have 4 kids and medical debt up to my eyeballs. Safe is all I can afford." She poured herself coffee and sat down. "Natalie, you rebuilt a life from nothing. You kept a child alive through cancer while working 2 jobs. You raised 3 other kids who are smart, kind, and resilient. You've been running the equivalent of a Fortune 500 company from this kitchen table for years. The only difference is nobody's been paying you for it. I'm thinking about starting a consulting business, then start it. I could fail. We could lose everything, baby. You've already lost everything. Daniel made sure of that." "This?" She gestured around the kitchen, at the house we'd managed to keep through sheer determination. "This is all bonus. You're already playing with house money. Might as well go all in." I registered Grayson Solutions as an LLC on a Tuesday afternoon during my lunch break. Cost $125. I built a basic website using a free template and stock photos. Cost $0. I ordered business cards from an online printer. Cost $47. Total startup investment $172. The hardest part wasn't the logistics. It was the fear. Every time I opened my mouth to tell someone I was a consultant, my brain screamed that I was a fraud. Who was I to charge companies for advice? I was a woman who'd been abandoned by her husband, who'd survived on charity groceries, who'd filled out assistance forms just to keep the lights on. But then I'd remember, I was also a woman who'd coordinated complex medical care across multiple providers. Who'd negotiated with billing departments to save thousands of dollars. Who'd managed household logistics that would make a military operation look simple. Who'd rebuilt a destroyed life into something stable. That woman could absolutely help companies solve problems. My first client came from the most unexpected place, the boys' school. Tyler came home one afternoon looking upset. Mom, they're going to cancel art class. What? Why? Mr. Henderson said the school doesn't have enough money in the budget. They have to cut programs. I'd been on the PTA for exactly one reason. Free babysitting during meetings meant I could network with other parents. The next meeting, I cornered the principal. Walk me through your budget crisis. Principal Davies looked surprised. It's complicated, try me, she did. 20 minutes later, I'd identified the problem. Their supply contracts were a disaster. They were buying from multiple vendors at retail prices instead of negotiating bulk rates. They were ordering supplies monthly instead of quarterly, eating up delivery fees. Their inventory management was non-existent. Teachers were hoarding supplies in closets because they didn't trust there'd be more when they needed it. I can fix this, I said. Give me 2 weeks we don't have budget for consultants, then pay me in recommendations. You fix this budget crisis using my strategies, and you tell every principal in the district who helped you do it, she agreed. I spent every evening for 2 weeks analyzing their spending, negotiating with vendors, and creating an inventory system that a teacher could actually use. When I presented my recommendations, the school board sat in stunned silence. You're telling us we can save $47,000 a year just by changing how we order supplies? One board member asked. Minimum. Probably closer to $60,000 once you account for reduced waste. They implemented everything. Art class was saved. 3 other programs that had been on the chopping block got funded, and Principal Davies sent an email to every principal in the district. If you have budget problems, call Natalie Grayson. She just saved our school $50,000. My phone rang the next day. Then the day after that. Then every day for 2 weeks straight. Schools couldn't pay much, but they could pay something. And they all had the same problems: inefficient processes, poor vendor management, zero cost analysis. Within 3 months, I had 12 school district clients. Within 6 months, I'd saved those districts a combined $600,000, and word was spreading. A superintendent mentioned my work to a colleague who ran operations for a regional hospital network. That colleague called me. I hear you're good at cutting costs without cutting quality. That's my specialty. Our supply chain is hemorrhaging money. Can you take a look? What's your budget for consulting? What do you charge? I'd been charging schools $50 an hour because that's what they could afford. But this was a hospital network with a multi-million-dollar operations budget. I took a breath and said a number that felt insane. $200 an hour, project-based pricing available for longer engagements. Done. When can you start? I started the following Monday. It took me 3 weeks to audit their supply chain and identify the problems. The presentation I gave their executive team showed how they were losing $2.3 million annually to inefficient purchasing practices, poor inventory management, and vendor contracts that hadn't been renegotiated in a decade. You're certain about these numbers? The CFO asked. I'm certain. Implement my recommendations, and you'll see the savings within 1 quarter. They implemented everything. The savings showed up in 8 weeks. The CFO called me personally. We want to put you on retainer. Whatever you're charging, we'll pay it. We just saved over $500,000 in 2 months because of you. That retainer was worth $15,000 a month. I sat in my car after that phone call and cried. Not sad tears, overwhelmed tears. For years ago, I'd had $284 to my name. Now I had a client paying me more in a month than I used to make in a year. Success, I learned, creates its own problems. By the time Chloe turned 11, I had more work than I could handle alone. I was still doing everything myself: audits, presentations, implementation support, follow-up consulting. I was working 16-hour days again, but this time by choice, and the money was actually landing in my account. The kids were thriving. Chloe was healthy, active, and talking about wanting to be a doctor. The twins were in advanced placement classes. My youngest, Emma, who'd been only 4 when Daniel left, was reading at a 4th grade level in 1st grade, but I was exhausted. And I was turning down work because there weren't enough hours in the day. You need to hire people, my mother said one evening after I'd fallen asleep at the dinner table for the third time that week. I can't afford to hire people, you can't afford not to. Baby, you're going to burn out, and then where will we be? She was right. I knew she was right. I put out a call for contractors, people who could do project-based work without requiring me to deal with payroll and benefits yet. I interviewed 20 people. Most of them had impressive resumes and talked a lot about their methodologies and frameworks. Then I met Joyce. Joyce was 53, recently divorced, and had spent 20 years as an administrative manager at a manufacturing plant before getting laid off in a restructuring. Her resume wasn't fancy. But when I described a problem I'd recently solved for a client, her eyes lit up. Oh, I dealt with that exact issue at my old job. What you needed was a just-in-time inventory system combined with vendor consignment. Did you try that? That's exactly what I did, because anything else would have created storage problems and tied up cash flow. Yeah, I've been there. I hired her on the spot. Then I found Marcus, not my son, a 60-year-old former logistics coordinator who'd retired early and was bored out of his mind. Then Patricia, a former hospital administrator who'd left the corporate world to raise kids and was ready to come back. Then David, a supply chain analyst who hated corporate politics but loved solving problems. None of them had consultant backgrounds. All of them had real-world experience solving the exact problems my clients needed solved. We became a team. Not just employees, a team. People who understood what it meant to make something work with limited resources, who didn't need fancy offices or expensive software, who just needed problems to solve and clients to help. I ran Grayson Solutions from my kitchen table for the first year. Then from a shared office space. Then from a small office we rented month to month. Then from a suite in a professional building. Each move felt impossible until it wasn't. Revenue hit $500,000 in year 2. Then $1.2 million in year 3. Then $3.5 million in year 4. I bought a house. Not a mansion I wasn't interested in showing off. But a real house with enough bedrooms that the kids didn't have to share, with a yard, with space for my mother to have her own apartment instead of a basement corner. The day we moved in, Chloe stood in the foyer looking around with wide eyes. Mom, is this really ours? It's really ours, baby. Dad would be so mad he left. The comment caught me off guard. We didn't talk about Daniel much anymore. He'd become a distant memory, a painful chapter we'd closed. Why do you say that? She shrugged. Because he thought you couldn't make it without him. And look at us now. Out of the mouths of children, the breakthrough that turned Grayson Solutions from a successful consulting firm into something much bigger came from frustration. I was working with a hospital network that was bleeding money despite implementing every operational improvement I'd recommended. The problem wasn't the improvements, those were working. The problem was that nobody could track whether they were being maintained. Changes would stick for 3 months, then slowly drift back to old habits. Savings would appear, then disappear. I'd come back for follow-up consultations and find that half my recommendations had been abandoned because they were too complicated or took too much time. It's not that the solutions don't work, the operations director told me. It's that we can't keep track of everything. We need a system. I went home that night and complained to Joyce over the phone. What we need, I said, is software that does what we do. Something that tracks inventory in real time, flags inefficiencies automatically, and makes the complex stuff simple enough that anybody can maintain it. So build it, Joyce said. I'm not a software developer. So hire one. Natalie, you've built everything else from nothing. Why not this? She had a point. I knew nothing about software development. But I knew exactly what the software needed to do because I'd been doing it manually for years. I knew every pain point, every inefficiency, every place where current systems failed. I hired a developer named Ken who'd been working freelance after leaving a big tech company that had burned him out. I showed him my spreadsheets, my tracking systems, my entire methodology. You want to turn this into software? He asked, scrolling through my documentation. Can you do it? I can do it. But it's going to be expensive. Development time, testing, debugging, you're looking at probably 6 months and $200,000 minimum. I had $180,000 in the business account. It was supposed to be my safety net, my buffer against disaster. Do it, I said. You sure? That's a huge risk, I'm sure. It took 8 months instead of 6 and cost $240,000 instead of $200,000. I had to take out a business loan for the overage. There were nights when I lay awake wondering if I'd just destroyed everything I'd built. Then we tested it with one client, the hospital that had been struggling to maintain improvements installed our software. Within 2 weeks, their operations director called me, "Natalie, this is incredible. We can see everything in real time." The system flagged 3 problems we didn't even know we had. "How fast can you roll this out to our other facilities?" We rolled it out across their entire network. The results were immediate and measurable. Costs dropped by 18% in the first quarter. Staff efficiency improved. Waste decreased. And most importantly, the improvements stuck because the system made it easy to maintain them. Other hospitals heard about it. Then school districts. Then manufacturing facilities. Then retail chains. Suddenly, I wasn't just selling consulting services. I was selling a product. A software platform that solved a problem nobody else had figured out how to solve. By the time Chloe turned 14, Grayson Solutions had transformed. We still did consulting, but the software, which we'd named OptiTrack, was becoming the primary revenue driver. We had 40 employees. Offices in 3 states. Revenue that had crossed $15 million annually, and I had venture capital firms calling me, wanting to invest, wanting to scale the business nationally. I took meetings with 5 different firms. They all offered money. They all wanted equity. They all had opinions about how I should run my company. I turned them all down. Why? My CFO, yes, I had a CFO now, asked. We could scale so much faster with their capital. Because they'd want control. And I didn't build this company to hand control to people who don't understand what it took to create it. Instead, I took out a larger business loan using our revenue as collateral. It was riskier, but it was mine. Nobody could tell me how to run my company. Nobody could push me out if they decided I wasn't the right CEO anymore. I'd lost control of my life once when Daniel left. I'd never let that happen again. Natalie Grayson went from $284 and food stamps to running a $15 million company. But the universe wasn't done with her yet. Because while she was building an empire, Daniel was building something too. And in part 3, his past was about to collide with her present in ways nobody saw coming. Drop a respect in the comments if you're feeling this journey. Hit that subscribe button because next is where everything explodes. And I mean everything. It was a Thursday evening in late April when my past walked back into my present. I was at home, reviewing quarterly projections on my laptop while Chloe practiced violin in the living room. She was 16 now, healthy, vibrant, and had just been accepted to Princeton with early admission. The twins were 18, both heading to college in the fall. Marcus to MIT for engineering, Tyler to Stanford for computer science. Emma, my baby at 14, was upstairs doing homework. We'd made it. Against every odd, against every obstacle, we'd not only survived, we'd thrived beyond anything I'd dared to dream during those dark early years. The doorbell rang. "I'll get it," Emma called, thundering down the stairs before I could stop her. I heard the door open. Then silence. The kind of silence that makes a mother's instincts fire on all cylinders. I got up and walked to the foyer. Emma stood frozen in the doorway, staring at a man I hadn't seen in 12 years. He'd aged grayer hair, lines around his eyes, a softness around his middle that hadn't been there before. But it was unmistakably Daniel. "Emma," he said, his voice cracking. "My God, you're so grown up. You were just a baby when last time I saw you." My daughter looked back at me, her face a question mark. "Go upstairs, Emma," I said quietly, "but Mom now, please." She went, but I could feel her watching from the landing. Daniel's eyes met mine. He smiled. Actually smiled, like he was a neighbor who'd stopped by to borrow sugar instead of the man who'd destroyed our lives. Hey, Nat. You look good. Really good. I stepped outside and pulled the door closed behind me. You have 30 seconds to explain why you're here, and then you're leaving. That's not much of a welcome. You're not much of a welcome guest. 25 seconds. He held up his hands in surrender. Okay. Look, I know I messed up. The laugh that came out of me was sharp enough to cut. You abandoned 4 children, including one fighting cancer, with less than $300 and a note. That's not messing up, Daniel. That's calculated cruelty. I was in a bad place mentally. The pressure was too much. I wasn't thinking clearly. And in 12 years, you never once thought to send a birthday card? A Christmas present? Child support? I wanted to. I did. But I was ashamed. And then so much time passed, I didn't know how to reach out. The lies were so smooth, so practiced. He'd had 12 years to perfect this performance. What do you really want? I asked. His mask slipped for just a moment. I saw calculation in his eyes, the same look he'd had when we were married, and he was trying to talk me into something I didn't want to do. I want to see my kids. Get to know them again. Be part of their lives. No, Nat, come on. They're my children too. You signed away that right when you walked out. I never signed anything. Legally, I'm still their father. My blood went cold. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. Look, I don't want to make this difficult. I just want a chance to reconnect with my family. This isn't your family anymore. The door opened behind me. Chloe stood there, her violin bow still in her hand. Behind her, I could see the twins coming down the stairs. I asked at him? Chloe asked, her voice flat. Daniel's face lit up. Chloe? Baby, look at you. You're so beautiful. And healthy. I heard you beat the cancer. I'm so proud of you. You heard? Chloe's voice could have frozen lava. From who? Because you weren't there. You weren't there for any of it. I know, sweetheart, and I'm so sorry. Don't call me sweetheart. You don't get to call me that. She turned to me. Mom, why is he here? He was just leaving, I said. Wait. Marcus pushed past his sister. He was tall now, broader than his father, with my mother's sharp eyes. I want to hear this. Dad, and I use that term loosely, why are you here? Really? Daniel's performance was cracking. I wanted to see you kids, after 12 years of silence. Tyler joined his brother. You didn't want to see us when Chloe was sick. You didn't want to see us when we were living on pasta and charity groceries. You didn't want to see us when Mom was working herself to death to keep us fed. So why now? I made mistakes, you made choices, Marcus interrupted. And now you want something. What is it? The mask fell completely. Daniel's face hardened. Fine. You want the truth? I'm getting divorced. My wife is taking everything in the settlement. I've got nothing left. I need help getting back on my feet. The audacity of it stole my breath. You want money, Chloe said slowly. You left us with nothing, and now you want us to give you money. I'm still your father. Family helps family. You stopped being our family the day you called me the sick kid and walked out, Chloe said. Mom showed us your note. We've all read it. Multiple times. We know exactly what you thought of us. Daniel's face went pale. You showed them the note? I showed them the truth, I said. I wasn't going to lie to protect your image. They deserve to know who their father really was. That's parental alienation. I could see you sue me? I stepped forward, and something in my expression made him step back. With what lawyer? What money? You just told us you're broke. I have rights, you have nothing. You abandoned your children 12 years ago. You've paid zero child support. You've had zero contact. No judge in this country would give you anything except a bill for back payments. I'll fight you on this, please do. I have 12 years of documentation. Medical bills you didn't pay. School events you didn't attend. Birthday cards that were never sent. Child support that never arrived. Every single piece of evidence shows a pattern of complete abandonment. Take me to court. I'm begging you to try. He looked at the kids, searching for a weakness. Emma had come back downstairs and stood between her brothers, all four of them presenting a united front. Come on, guys. I'm your dad. Don't you want a relationship with me? I want a lot of things, Chloe said. I wanted a father who stayed when I was sick. I wanted a dad who showed up to my 8th grade graduation, my Sweet 16, my Princeton acceptance. I wanted a parent who cared more about me than his own comfort. But wanting things doesn't make them appear, does it? You taught me that. I'm offering you a chance, you're offering us a burden, Marcus said. You're not here because you love us. You're here because you need us. That's not family. That's exploitation. Daniel's expression shifted from pleading to anger. You've turned them against me. You poisoned them. I raised them, I corrected. I taught them to recognize manipulation. I taught them that actions matter more than words. I taught them that they deserve better than people who only show up when they want something. You didn't poison them, Daniel. You freed them from ever wasting time on someone like you. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Get off my property. If you come back, I'll call the police for trespassing. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is the years I wasted believing you were a decent man. Now leave. He stood there for another moment, rage and desperation warring on his face. Then he turned and walked to a beat-up Honda parked at the curb. Not the expensive suit and confidence I'd expected from someone making threats. Just a broken man in a cheap car, leaving for the second time. This time, I didn't feel devastated. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The door closed. My 4 children stood around me, and for a moment, nobody spoke. Are you okay, Mom? Emma asked finally. I'm fine, baby. Are you guys okay? Honestly? Tyler pulled me into a hug. I feel sorry for him. He lost the best thing that ever happened to him, us, and he's too stupid to realize it wasn't because you turned us against him. It's because he turned himself into someone not worth knowing. 3 days later, I was served with legal papers at my office. Daniel was suing for parental rights, back custody time, and emotional damages for being alienated from his children. The filing claimed I'd deliberately prevented him from maintaining a relationship with the kids, that I'd poisoned them against him, and that I owed him compensation for 12 years of lost parental relationship. The amount he was suing for? $3 million. My attorney, Caroline Webb, read through the filing with increasing disbelief. This is the most ridiculous lawsuit I've seen in 20 years of practice, she said. He abandoned his family with documented proof. He left you a note, for God's sake, and now he's claiming you prevented him from having a relationship? He's either delusional or desperate. He's desperate. He told me his divorce is taking everything. He's broke. So he thought he'd sue his ex-wife for millions? Based on what legal theory? Does he need one? Can't he just file and hope we settle to make it go away? Caroline's smile was predatory. He can try. But Natalie, I need you to understand something. If we fight this, and I recommend we fight this aggressively, everything comes out. Every detail of the abandonment. Every missed child support payment. Every birthday, every holiday, every medical crisis he ignored. We'll have to put your children on the stand to testify about his absence. It will be brutal and public. And if we don't fight? Then he wins. He gets money for abandoning his family. And men like him? They never stop. Give him $3 million now, and he'll be back in 5 years asking for more. You have to end this permanently. I thought about my kids. About Chloe, who'd just gotten accepted to Princeton. About the twins, who were supposed to be enjoying their last months of high school. About Emma, who was already dealing with being the youngest. Then I thought about every other parent out there being manipulated by someone like Daniel. About the message it would send if he won. About the precedent it would set. We fight, I said. Not just fight, we destroy him. I want every single piece of evidence. I want a countersuit for 12 years of child support with interest. I want him to understand that you don't get to abandon your family and then profit from it. Caroline's smile widened. Now you're talking my language. But we'll need the kids' testimony. Are they strong enough? They're my kids. They're strong enough for anything. That night, I sat down with all 4 of them. Your father is suing me, I said bluntly. He claims I prevented him from seeing you. He wants $3 million for lost relationship time. Emma's mouth dropped open. That's insane, it's ridiculous, I agreed. But to fight it properly, I need you guys to be willing to testify. To stand up in court and tell the truth about the last 12 years. It won't be easy. His lawyer will try to make it seem like I brainwashed you or turned you against him. It'll be uncomfortable and possibly painful. We'll do it, Chloe said immediately. Mom, you've been fighting for us our entire lives. It's time we fought for you. I'm in, Marcus added. Besides, I want to see what happens when he realizes he picked a fight with the wrong family. Tyler and Emma nodded agreement. Okay, I said. Then we do this together. But I need you to understand, your father is going to say things about me. About us. About our family. He's going to try to make himself look like a victim. Can you handle that, Mom? Chloe said gently. We've been handling his absence for 12 years. We can handle his presence for a few hours in court. Caroline didn't waste time. She hired a team of private investigators to dig into Daniel's life since he'd left us. What they found was so much worse than I'd expected. He hadn't just started a new family. He'd started 3 new families. After leaving us, he'd moved to Ohio and married a woman named Jennifer within 8 months. They'd had a child together, a son. When that boy was 3, Daniel had left them the same way he'd left us. Different note, same message. The pressure was too much. He needed to find himself. Don't try to contact him. Then he'd gone to Texas and married Kelly. 2 more kids. Same pattern stayed until the youngest was around 4, then disappeared, then Florida with Amanda. 1 child. Left when the kid was 2. The investigators found all 3 women. All 3 had similar stories. All 3 had been left with minimal money and maximum debt. None had received consistent child support. All had been told by Daniel's family that they must have done something to drive him away. This man has 7 children across 4 states, Caroline told me, spreading the evidence across her conference table. 7 kids he's abandoned. And now he's suing you, the first wife, because you're the only one who's become successful enough to make it worth his time. The other women, have they filed for child support? They all have. He's never paid. There are warrants out for him in 2 states for failure to pay. He's been dodging the system for 12 years. Can we bring them in? As witnesses, better. I'm contacting their attorneys. We're going to coordinate. Your case isn't just about you anymore, Natalie. It's about a pattern of behavior. A serial abandoner who preys on women, starts families, and leaves when the responsibility gets too heavy. And then has the audacity to sue for emotional damages. The first woman Caroline contacted was Jennifer, Daniel's second wife. She flew in from Ohio to meet with us, bringing her now 11-year-old son, who she left with a friend while we talked. Jennifer was 39, with tired eyes and a backbone made of steel. Did he did the same thing to you? She asked me. 4 kids. One with leukemia. He left when she was in the middle of treatment. Jennifer's face crumpled. God. I thought I had it bad. He left us when Jason was 3 and I'd just been diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Said he couldn't handle another medical crisis. Another? He told me about a sick kid in his past. Said it had traumatized him, made him afraid of hospitals. I felt sorry for him. She laughed bitterly. I actually felt sorry for the man who abandoned his child with cancer. We compared notes. The patterns were identical. The promises that he'd changed. The financial irresponsibility. The emotional manipulation. The sudden disappearance when things got difficult. I want to help, Jennifer said. Whatever you need. This man needs to be stopped. He's out there somewhere, probably looking for his next victim. Another woman to charm, another family to build, another set of kids to abandon when they need him most. Kelly, from Texas, video conferenced in. Amanda, from Florida, sent detailed affidavits. Together, we built a case that was irrefutable. Daniel wasn't just a man who'd made a mistake. He was a predator who'd made a lifestyle out of abandoning families and avoiding responsibility. The hearing was scheduled for August, 4 months away. Caroline used every day to build our case. She subpoenaed medical records showing Chloe's treatment timeline and the bills Daniel had never paid. She gathered school records showing every parent-teacher conference he'd missed, every emergency contact form that listed only my name. She collected birthday cards I'd saved, cards my kids had made for a father who never called to acknowledge them. She interviewed neighbors who'd witnessed our struggles. Mrs. Patterson, who'd left groceries on our porch, provided testimony about finding me crying in my car after a hospital visit because I didn't know how I'd pay for Chloe's next treatment. Mr. Chen from 2 doors down described seeing Daniel load his car in the middle of the night before he left, deliberately waiting until the household was asleep. The Twins baseball coach from their youth league testified that Daniel had promised to come to games and never showed up, not even once. Chloe's oncology nurse described how Chloe used to ask where her daddy was, and how heartbreaking it was to watch a child fight cancer while also processing abandonment. Caroline also subpoenaed Daniel's financial records for the past 12 years. What she found was damning. That he'd maintained employment throughout, working various sales jobs that paid well. He'd purchased a boat 3 years after leaving us. He'd taken international vacations. He'd spent thousands on hobbies while claiming he couldn't afford child support. This man, Caroline said, has never been unable to pay. He's been unwilling. And we're going to make sure the judge understands the difference. Meanwhile, my business continued to grow. By July, Grayson Solutions had signed its largest contract yet, a 5-year deal with a national retail chain worth $32 million. The announcement made the business press. The timing couldn't have been worse or better, depending on your perspective. Daniel's attorney immediately filed an amendment to their lawsuit, claiming that my success proved I didn't need the family home, and that I should sell it and give Daniel half the proceeds as part of our marital assets. We'd been divorced for 12 years. The house had been purchased 8 years after he left, with money I'd earned entirely on my own. There was no legal basis for his claim, but it showed his true character more clearly than any testimony could. He didn't want a relationship with his kids. He wanted money. Specifically, my money. Caroline was gleeful. He just handed us the case. The judge is going to see exactly what kind of man he is, someone who abandoned his family and now wants to profit from his ex-wife's success. This is perfect. The kids prepared their testimony. Chloe wrote and rewrote her victim impact statement until it was devastating in its honesty. The twins coordinated their testimonies to cover different aspects of Daniel's absence. Emma, at 14, practiced answering the kinds of questions Daniel's attorney might ask. He's going to try to make it seem like Mom turned us against him, Marcus warned her during one practice session. He'll ask if Mom said bad things about Dad. She never had to, Emma replied. His actions said everything. My mother, now 78 and sharp as ever, insisted on testifying. I was there, she said. I watched you rebuild from nothing. I watched those babies cry for a father who never called. I'm going to make sure that Judge knows exactly what happened. A week before the hearing, Caroline called me into her office. I need to prepare you for something, she said. Daniel's attorney is going to paint you as a cold, successful businesswoman who emasculated her husband. They're going to claim that your ambition drove him away, that you cared more about your career than your family. That's not. I didn't even have a career when he left. I was an administrative assistant making $28,000 a year. I know. And we'll make that clear. But be prepared for attacks on your character. That's all they have left. Let them come, I said. I know who I am. More importantly, my kids know who I am. Daniel can say whatever he wants. The truth is louder. The courtroom showdown is coming. Daniel thinks he's going to walk away with millions. He has no idea what's waiting for him. Next is where justice gets served, and trust me, it's served ice cold. If you're ready to see this man face the consequences of his actions, comment justice below. Hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss the finale. This is where everything he's done comes crashing down around him. The courthouse on August 14th was smaller than I expected. Courtroom C, third floor, with wooden benches worn smooth by decades of people seeking justice. Daniel sat at the plaintiff's table with his attorney, a man named Roger Mills who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I sat with Caroline, my 4 children directly behind me, my mother beside them. We dressed carefully professional but not showy. We weren't trying to intimidate. We were just being ourselves. Daniel wore a suit that was too big for him, probably borrowed. He looked older than he had on my doorstep 3 months ago. Thinner. Desperate. Judge Margaret Thornton entered, and we all stood. She was in her early 60s, with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Be seated, she said, settling behind the bench. I've reviewed the initial filings in this case, and I have to say, Mr. Hartley, your lawsuit is highly unusual. Daniel's attorney stood. Your Honor, my client has been denied access to his children for 12 years due to parental alienation by the defendant, Ms. Grayson, the judge corrected. She's not a defendant in a criminal case. This is civil court. Use proper terminology. Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Grayson has systematically denied my client the ability to maintain a relationship with his children by leaving them? The judge's eyebrow arched. Mr. Mills, I've read your filing. Your client left his family in 2006 with a note. A note that referred to his cancer-stricken daughter as the sick kid. He provided no forwarding address, no phone number, and no child support for 12 years. How exactly did Ms. Grayson prevent a relationship he made no effort to maintain? Mills fumbled with his papers. Your Honor, my client was experiencing severe mental health issues. Then he should have sought treatment, not abandoned 4 children. Judge Thornton turned to Caroline. Ms. Webb, I assume you have a response to this lawsuit? Caroline stood, and I saw her smile. The kind of smile a shark makes before it strikes. Your Honor, we're not just responding. We're countersuing for 12 years of unpaid child support, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and a motion to terminate Mr. Hartley's parental rights entirely. Additionally, we have evidence that Mr. Hartley has engaged in a pattern of abandonment across multiple states with multiple families. We've coordinated with attorneys representing 3 other women he's similarly abandoned. The judge's expression sharpened. 3 other women? Yes, Your Honor. 7 children total that Mr. Hartley has fathered and abandoned. We have witnesses prepared to testify. Daniel shot to his feet. That's not relevant to this case. Sit down, Mr. Hartley, Judge Thornton said coldly. You filed this lawsuit claiming emotional damages for lost relationship with your children. Your pattern of behavior is absolutely relevant. Ms. Webb, proceed. What followed was 3 hours of systematic destruction. Caroline presented medical bills from Chloe's treatment, $487,000 in total costs, none of which Daniel had contributed to. She showed school records documenting 12 years of zero parental involvement. She played a recording of Daniel's voicemail from 3 weeks before the hearing, where he called me drunk and said, "Just give me the money and I'll disappear again. That's what you want anyway." Then the witnesses testified. My mother went first. At 78, she was fierce and unshakable. "I moved in with my daughter the day that coward left," she said, pointing at Daniel. "I watched her work 3 jobs while caring for a child fighting cancer. I watched her cry herself to sleep because she didn't know how to pay for treatment. I watched those babies ask where their daddy was, and I had to help their mother explain that sometimes people just leave. He didn't leave because of mental health. He left because he was selfish." Mrs. Patterson testified about the groceries, about finding me in my car, about the community rallying around us because Daniel had left us with nothing. Chloe's oncology nurse testified about the psychological impact of abandonment during cancer treatment. "Children who maintain parental support during treatment have better outcomes," she said. Chloe had to process her father's abandonment while fighting for her life. The trauma of that cannot be overstated. Then Jennifer took the stand. Daniel's face went white when he saw her. "He told me his first wife was crazy," Jennifer said. "That she'd kept his kids from him. I believed him. I married him. He left me the exact same way when our son was 3 and I was diagnosed with cancer. He has a pattern: find a woman, start a family, leave when things get difficult." Kelly testified via video conference from Texas. Amanda sent her affidavit, which Caroline read into the record. By the time Caroline finished presenting evidence, Daniel was slumped in his chair, and his attorney was whispering urgently to him. "Your Honor," Mills said, standing. "My client would like to withdraw the lawsuit." "Oh, I don't think so," Judge Thornton said. "Mr. Hartley opened this door. We're going to walk all the way through it." "Ms. Webb, do you have additional witnesses?" "Yes, Your Honor. The children would like to address the court." Chloe went first. At 16, she was poised and articulate, every inch her mother's daughter. "I was 6 when my father left," she began, her voice steady. "I was sick. Really sick. I just started chemotherapy, and I was scared all the time. I kept asking for my daddy, and my mom kept making excuses. She didn't want me to know he'd abandoned us while I was fighting for my life." She looked directly at Daniel. "I found out the truth when I was 8. I read the note he left. He called me the sick kid. Not his daughter. Not Chloe. The sick kid. Like I was a problem instead of a person." Her voice cracked, but she pushed through. "I'm healthy now. I'm going to Princeton. I'm going to be a doctor so I can help other kids like me. And the reason I survived, the reason I'm standing here, is because my mother loved me enough to fight for me. My father's absence taught me what real love looks like. It's the person who stays, not the person who runs." Marcus went next. "I was 10 when Dad left. Old enough to remember him, young enough to believe the lies he told about coming back. He said he'd call. He never did. He said he'd visit. He never did. I spent years thinking I'd done something wrong, that if I'd been better, he would have stayed." He paused. "I'm going to MIT in the fall. I'm studying engineering. Mom worked herself to exhaustion to make sure we had opportunities. She gave us everything while Dad gave us nothing. He doesn't get to show up now and claim he's owed something." Tyler's testimony was quieter but no less powerful. "The worst part wasn't that he left. It was watching my mom try to be both parents. Watching her work multiple jobs and still show up to every school event. Watching her carry weight that should have been shared. He didn't just abandon us. He abandoned her, and she still managed to raise 4 successful kids. That's not alienation. That's heroism." Emma, at 14, was last. I don't remember my father. I was 4 when he left. Everything I know about him, I learned from his absence. He taught me what a father shouldn't be. My mom taught me what a parent should be. I'm grateful for one of those lessons. When Emma sat down, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom, except Daniel's. He sat stone-faced, arms crossed, refusing to look at any of his children. Judge Thornton reviewed her notes. Mr. Hartley, would you like to address the court? Daniel stood. Your Honor, I made mistakes. I was young and overwhelmed. You were 32 when you abandoned your family, the judge interrupted. That's not young. That's grown. What exactly were you overwhelmed by? Your daughter's cancer? Your responsibility to 4 children? The expectation that you'd actually be a father? I'm trying to make amends by suing for $3 million? Judge Thornton's voice could have cut steel. Mr. Hartley, I've been on this bench for 19 years. I've seen a lot of terrible parents. But you might be the worst. You didn't just leave. You left during a medical crisis, took the family savings, and then had the audacity to start multiple other families and abandon them too. And now you want to be compensated for the relationship you destroyed? She shuffled papers. Here's what's going to happen. Your lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. You're ordered to pay 12 years of back child support with interest, calculated at the state guideline rate. That comes to $287,000. You have 90 days to establish a payment plan or face wage garnishment and potential jail time for contempt. Daniel's face went red. I don't have that kind of money. Then you should have paid it when it was due. Additionally, I'm granting Ms. Grayson's petition to terminate your parental rights. You are no longer the legal father of these children. You have no visitation rights, no custody rights, and no legal standing to contact them in any way. If you attempt contact, Ms. Grayson can pursue harassment charges. The gavel came down like thunder. Furthermore, Judge Thornton continued, I'm forwarding this case file to the district attorney's office. Your pattern of interstate child abandonment and support evasion may constitute federal crimes. They can decide whether to pursue charges. Daniel was shaking now, his attorney pulling him back down into his seat. This court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, my children surrounded me. We stood in the late summer sun, and for the first time in 12 years, I felt completely free. Is it really over? Emma asked. It's really over, baby. Chloe hugged me tight. You did it, Mom. You protected us one more time. We did it, I corrected. All of us together. Caroline joined us on the steps. Natalie, I need you to know, that was one of the most satisfying cases of my career. That man walked in thinking he'd intimidate you into a settlement. He left with nothing and owing you a fortune. Will he actually pay? The state will make sure of it. And if he doesn't, he goes to jail. Either way, he's out of your lives permanently. 3 months later, the district attorney did file federal charges, failure to pay child support across state lines, fraud, and identity falsification. Daniel took a plea deal that included 5 years probation and mandatory payment of all back support to all 4 women he'd abandoned. The Forbes article about Grayson Solutions ran in October. The headline read, From Abandonment to Achievement, How Natalie Grayson Built a $45 million Empire. The article detailed everything, the abandonment, Chloe's cancer, the years of struggle, and the eventual triumph. It talked about OptiTrack and how my personal experience with crisis management had led to software that was revolutionizing operations across multiple industries. But the quote that got shared most widely was from the end, success isn't about having advantages. It's about refusing to let disadvantages define you. Daniel called my office the day the article published. My assistant asked if I wanted to take the call. No, I said. Block the number. Block all his numbers, with pleasure. 2 years later, I stood in Princeton's chapel watching Chloe graduate summa cum laude with a degree in molecular biology. Marcus and Tyler had flown in from their respective schools. Emma, now 16, sat beside my mother, who at 80 was still sharp and fierce. After the ceremony, Chloe found me in the crowd. Mom, my advisor wants to talk to you. She's starting a foundation for children of single parents pursuing STEM careers. She wants your input. I met Dr. Richardson in her office. She was in her 50s, warm and direct. Ms. Grayson, your daughter is exceptional. But what struck me most wasn't her intelligence, though she has plenty of that. It was her resilience. When I asked her where that came from, she said, "My mother taught me that you survive first, then you thrive." That sounds like Chloe. I want to create scholarships for kids like her. Kids from single-parent homes who've overcome significant obstacles. But these kids need more than money. They need mentorship, support systems, and people who believe in them. Would you be willing to serve on the foundation board? I thought about the woman I'd been 18 years ago, terrified and alone with 4 kids and $284. I thought about all the people who'd helped us, Mrs. Patterson with her groceries, the hospital social worker with her programs, my boss Janet who'd given me a chance. I'll do more than serve on the board, I said. Grayson Solutions will fund the first year of scholarships. 50 students. Full ride. Dr. Richardson's eyes widened. That's incredibly generous. It's necessary. Nobody should have to choose between survival and education. Nobody should have to face what we faced alone. The Grayson Foundation launched the following fall. We funded scholarships, mentorship programs, and support systems for children from single-parent homes. Chloe ran the student outreach. Marcus designed the technology infrastructure. Tyler managed the financial systems. Even Emma, still in high school, volunteered. We weren't just a family that had survived. We were a family that was making sure others could survive too. I never heard from Daniel again. The last I knew, he was working a job in Arizona, his wages garnished for child support payments he'd never willingly made. His other children wanted nothing to do with him either. He'd lost 7 children. 7 chances at redemption. 7 opportunities to be better than he was, and he'd lost them by his own choices. My name is Natalie Grayson. I'm 48 years old, and this is my story, not a story about revenge, though some might call it that. Not a story about bitterness, though I had every right to be bitter. This is a story about what happens when you refuse to let abandonment define you. When you choose to build instead of break. When you teach your children that family isn't about biology, it's about commitment, consistency, and showing up even when it's hard. Daniel thought leaving us would free him. Instead, it freed us from him. My children are extraordinary not because of their father, but in spite of him. They learned strength from watching me refuse to give up. They learned compassion from receiving it when we needed it most. They learned that success means nothing if you don't use it to help others. If you're watching this and you've been abandoned, betrayed, or left to rebuild alone, I want you to hear this clearly: you are not defined by who left you. You are defined by what you build after they're gone. Some bridges are meant to burn. Some people are meant to stay in your past. And some stories are meant to end not with reconciliation, but with the satisfaction of knowing you survived, you thrived, and you built something beautiful from the wreckage they left behind. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community where we lift each other up and remind each other that we're stronger than we know. If this story touched you, drop a comment sharing your own journey. If you've ever had to rebuild from nothing, type rebuild below. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because every story we share is another reminder that survival is possible and success is achievable. This is Natalie Grayson, reminding you that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living so well that your existence becomes proof they were wrong about you. Now go build your empire. The world is waiting.